If you could only learn one skill at an IBL workshop, what would that be? Hands down, think, pair, share. AIBL Video 4 is about think, pair, share. It's a highly useful technique that you can use in any class. And in this video, we're going to take a look at what is think, pair, share and some examples of how to use it and some riffs on how you can adapt think, pair, share to other settings that you might not have originally thought of. Let's take a look at the basic structure of think, pair, share. Step one is to pose a task and ask students to work on that task without talking to other students so they can generate their own thoughts and ideas. The next step is for students to work with a partner, and this is where the pairs come in, and they can discuss what they thought about in the first step. And the third and final step is to have a whole class discussion, where you have students or pairs share what they thought about or what they came up with the whole class. Let's take a look at some examples of think, pair, share to make things more concrete. The first example we'll look at is from calculus. It's the chain rule. So here we have a function h of x equals sine of x squared plus 3. And the question is, what are the outside and inside functions? This is a topic where students struggle with identifying composition of functions. And we can help them by using think, pair, share in class. So instead of, say, the instructor running through this example and doing all the work at the board, this is a great time for instructors to take a moment and implement think, pair, share. So the way this could work is you could have students asked initially, think for yourself, what are the outside and inside functions? And the instructor can wait a minute and then ask students to work with a partner. So please work with your partner, the person sitting next to you, and discuss what are the inside and outside functions. What is f, what is g, or what is g and what is f? And then after they've had a minute or so to discuss this idea, then you can have a whole class discussion. And you can take that many ways. So it could be you visited a group and they have a good idea, so you ask that group to share what their thoughts are, or you could ask for a volunteer, or the instructor can go through and say, all right, so here are two options. Which one do you think it is, option A or option B? So those are just a few examples of how you could handle that situation. So in summary, give the task to students to think for a little while. When they look ready, ask them to talk to a partner. And then when partners have had a good chance to think through the idea, have a whole class discussion. The next example is from topology. So here we're looking at an upper level proof-based math course for math majors. And what I want to get across is that you can use think, pair, share at this level or any other level really of mathematics teaching. And so let's set the context. So it's point set topology. You've stated the definition of an open set in the plane. And one option is to give a list of examples and non-examples to students and ask them to figure out which ones are and are not open sets. And so that's a nice task. That one could take a little longer because if they look through a long list of sets. So let's say you're a little bit concerned about time. You have about, say, 10 minutes left in class. Then you can shorten that and say, okay, well, here's a set A and here's a set B. Determine which one of these or neither are open sets. And you let students think about it and apply the definition. Have a discussion with pairs and then have a whole class discussion. So again, you can take this a lot of ways. That's just one example. And also you can do this in an upper level course. So you're not restricted to calculus or courses that are, say, at the first two levels of college level. You can use think, pair, share in any math class. And on that note, let's take a look at math for elementary teaching. The area or the topic is grouping, ungrouping, addition, and subtraction. And where we want to go with this is to get students in this class to be able to ask good math questions when they are teaching elementary school. So it's not just about learning the mathematics and learning how to understand how to do school mathematics better. It's also about learning how to ask good questions. So you can also use think, pair, share in this kind of situation. Here are a couple of sample tasks. The first one is, what would be a helpful context to help first graders learn grouping and ungrouping? And the second one is come up with a list of questions that would help first graders learn grouping and ungrouping. And you can see how this could carry on to the other topics like addition, subtraction, etc. It's now time to look at how you can riff off of the basic idea of think, pair, share and mix things up to keep things interesting and exciting in class, as well as to address different kinds of situations in your classes. One common place to use think, pair, share is right after a student presents a proof or a solution. So here we're assuming you're using inquiry-based learning and the students came in with a solution or a proof to a problem. And after a student is done presenting a problem, that's a great time to use think, pair, share. So you could just tell your students, hey, come up with 1 to 2 comments, questions or compliments, talk to your neighbor, and then we're going to have a whole class discussion in a couple of minutes. Another situation where you can use think, pair, share is when a student makes a useful comment or asks a really great question. That's a wonderful time to use think, pair, share because you want all the students in the class to grapple with that comment or question and to get something out of it. It's a perfect time to say, hey, so-and-so just asked a great question. Let's all think about it, work on it in pairs after you've had a chance to think about it, and get back together in a couple minutes. Another way to change things up is to do the 1, 2, 4 all. And the difference here between think, pair, share is that you have 2 pairs talk to each other and form a group of 4 in this kind of order. So first you do the think and then talk to a neighbor. Okay, talk to another group and then have a whole class discussion. So this might be a nice way to build up more ideas and to build more energy in a class and to also mix things up once in a while so that you don't get into a rut. All right, so those are some examples of how you can riff off of the basic idea of think, pair, share. I want to touch on why I like pairs and why I think they're valuable. And it boils down to the fact that if you're in a conversation with just one other person, you really have to be part of that conversation. Whereas if you were in a group of 3 or more people, you could sit back and let the others talk and not engage in the learning process and do something else, or just be quiet and not share your ideas. So in order to prevent that, I like pairs. Now, I don't use pairs all the time, but I think pairs are useful in building that everyday base of you need to talk, you need to engage, you need to be part of the team and the learning process. One of the nicest features of think, pair, share is that it doesn't require you to overhaul your entire teaching practices and methods. You don't have to wait till next semester. You can start using think, pair, share tomorrow in your next class. Another valuable feature of think, pair, share is that it requires you to use component skills of IBL teaching. You're asking questions, having students work in pairs, having students share their ideas to the whole class, and managing class discussions. These are all valuable things to do. To learn more about think, pair, share and IBL, please visit our website at www.inquirybasedlearning.org.